Brixton. Let's go check it out. Hi, Don. I will. It's a great day.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to It's a Good Day When. I'm your host, Lavonne Upton, and today it's a good day when we get to talk to a local author. Today, our guest is R.L Herron, author of contemporary fiction. And Ron is here to talk to us about 4 books he's written and published. Ron, I'm a published author of 2 books myself. One is to my grandchildren about my life's challenges, and one is interviews of Parkinson's disease patients, which is not a light subject to talk about. But you said your passion, you said it was a secret passion, was to write fiction. Why did you call it a secret passion?
Well, Lavonne, I did a lot of writing in my career. I worked for ad agencies and a major Fortune 10 company. And I was always writing ad copy and proposals, press releases, things like that. But I always wanted to write fiction, and I call it a secret passion because not very many people knew that. You know, they knew the other things I did, but they didn't know about the fiction writing.
So you wrote for business,
Yes.
but you wanted to write for fun.
Exactly.
Yeah, very good. Well, what has your path been to get you here with 4 books published? How did you start?
Well, I started writing when I was 17. Like I said, I submitted my first story to a magazine when I was 17 years old. Didn't sell it, but I started then, and I kept doing that all those years. I still do it. But I got to the point I wanted to be published, and going the traditional route was tough, so I decided to indie publish. And I've written 4 books since 2012, and 2 of them have been award winners, so I've been real happy.
4 books since 2012, that's only 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how you did it. 4 books in 2 years, that's 1 every 6 months.
Yeah, well,
You must just sit down and stick to it.
the first book actually it began out of several short stories that I had written several years earlier about some of the same characters, and when I sat down to put it together as a novel, I filled out those stories, fleshed them out, added to them, and it became Reicholt Street. They really went together fairly quickly. The others, I just enjoy what I'm doing. I try to write 1,000 words a day. I don't always make it because life has a way of telling you what's going to happen, what you're going to do any given day. But some days I write a lot more than that, so it kind of averages out.
But you know, even having your book edited alone takes sometimes 6 months. How do you go through that editing process?
Editing takes a long time. I do a lot of my own editing, and I do it multiple times, because that was one of the things I did while I was working in my professional career. And I edit the annual reports, and you have to be right when you do that. But it's really hard to edit your own stuff, because you tend to see what you want to see. I know my wife reads or listens to everything I write, because she's got a pretty good handle on what works and what doesn't. I've got a sister-in-law, Judy, who helps me with some of the proofreading, and I've got folks both locally, other writers, and actually on some of the online writing communities that I belong to, who've been very generous in helping, look at large tracts of writing and commenting on them. But you're right, that part alone takes months.
Well, your career was in advertising and public relations and marketing. So since you mentioned that you're an independent publisher, is that right?
Yes.
So that background should stand you in good stead for helping you market and promote your book. Did you find that to be true?
Well, it probably gives me a leg up on knowing the kinds of things I should be doing. But it's tough because when I wrote a press release for a major corporation, you saw it in the papers all across the country the next day because of who it was about. I write one for myself as a new author, nobody picks it up because nobody knows who I am. So it's tough. You really go about it, I call it earned media. It's not something you pay for, it's something that is really word of mouth. And you try to generate as much interest that way, get people talking about it, and then they can come and look at other things that you're doing.
Now, I know you belong to some writers groups and so forth, so how do you affiliate with other writers, and how do you help one another?
Okay.
I know there's like a writers group that I met you at, actually, in Rochester Hills, and there are other writers. So tell us about some of those and how they help you out.
Well, that writers group, it's the Freelance Marketplace Writers Group, and that's every month on the third Tuesday. And it talks about the business of writing. I like that group because that's what it's talking about. Not necessarily a critique group or things like that. It's talking about what things are available, what's out there, what's coming, what people have discovered, about the business of writing. And it's all business, it's not just fiction, because there's a lot of folks that come that are interested in nonfiction work, writing articles. But I also belong to the National Writers Association, Michigan Writers, the Academy of American Poets, because I do write some poetry. And there are two international groups with similar names. The Association of Independent Authors is the US one, and the Alliance of Independent Authors is the one out of the UK. I belong to all of those as well. Mostly because you can trade ideas, you can learn about trends, and share some of the. It's nice to talk to other people who are passionate about words.
Yeah. It's kind of an accountability group too, in a way. It keeps you motivated sometimes.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Somebody will come on and they'll talk. You'll be having a rough time with whatever you're writing, and you might be able to help them through it. In the process of doing that, you help yourself.
And some of the critique groups are good too, because they give you feedback if you're stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I've just been to a writers' conference, and they said they talked about three types of publishing: the traditional way, the independent, and the hybrid. So you call yourself an indie publisher, an independent publisher, and I wondered why you chose to go that route.
Well, traditional publishing, you need an agent first of all, because the five major publishing houses, and most of the good smaller ones, won't talk to you without an agent. Getting an agent by itself, it can be a long process. It could take years.
Yeah.
I didn't know that I wanted to wait that long. I had things I wanted to write and things I wanted to say, and so I went the indie route. And that's just what you think it is. You do it yourself. It used to be that had a stigma to it, like it was vanity press. That's long since gone away. The advent of iBooks and the Kindle and the Nook and all the book readers that are available. There's actually some indie author multimillionaires now. So that stigma has gone away, and it lets me publish what I think is good when I want to publish it. I don't have to worry about trying to get an agent and a publisher. And I've written, like I said, the 4 books, and 2 of them have been award winners. So
Tell me about that. How did you win awards? I mean, who was it exposed to that critiqued it, and how did you win an award?
The first book, Reichhold Street, was submitted for review to a group called Reader's Favorite. They read for, they'll read for Random House. They'll do a lot of indie writers also, but they do a lot of traditionally published authors as well. And it won a gold medal with them in 2012. And in fact, my wife and I went to the International Book Fair in Miami that year.
Is that right?
To receive the award.
What were they looking for? Why did they tell you were the winner?
It was submitted as young adult coming of age fiction, and that's the category it won in. And there was, there were probably 5,000 books that were reviewed for the awards, and I was fortunate to win.
And that motivates you, keeps you going.
Oh yeah. Well, then 2013, I followed that with a book of short stories called ZEBULON, which was their silver medal winner in young adult fantasy. So I kind of crossed genres to do that, and that was fun to know too. That was interesting to know that people enjoyed what I was doing.
Well, traditional publishers now do expect you to bring something to the party themselves so that they don't have the big expense of promoting a book. And they talked about whether you're a traditional publishing traditionally or independently, that you have a platform. When you come to them to submit something, they want you to have a platform. And they explained that the platform was how well known you were or how exposed you were in the social media and otherwise. So what are some of the things that what is your platform? What do you have to bring to the party as far as promoting this?
Well, you're right. You need to do it for yourself as well, particularly for yourself as an indie. But even the traditional publishers do expect you to have that social presence. They expect you to help sell your own work. I have a writing website that I update constantly. I can make sure it's constant and everything in it is relevant, talks about my writing. Last month it had 14,000 hits, so I know people are looking at it. I started an indie writing blog. I write a blog about independent publishing. Just talking about the things that I know about writing. I think I know a lot about how to write, but I've also discovered a lot of things about indie publishing since I've been doing it. So I write about that to help other indie writers, and that's got about 2,200 followers.
So it's gaining momentum.
It's getting there, right?
Yeah.
My son suggested I needed a Facebook and a Twitter presence.
Yes.
I hadn't really considered that, but I did. I have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, and I discovered quickly that you don't talk about selling your book.
Yeah.
You talk about one of the things that, because nobody follows you that way. You talk about things that'll help people. You praise other people. You talk about things you've seen other people doing, and you build a following. And I've got about 1,800 people since last summer when I started that.
They even mentioned Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest.
Yeah.
Pinterest.
Yeah.
And there was a speaker there who actually does this for people. You can have someone put you in all the social media, which might be worth it sometimes.
Yeah, it could be.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It could be. What I do is I generally link the blog to Twitter and I blog to Goodreads and LinkedIn, and every time I update the blog, it goes to them as well.
You were talking about Facebook and that you're not supposed to talk about your book. I've got one gal who's got a business, and so she's on Facebook, and she puts on about 6 things a day, and I've gotten so I don't even read hers anymore because I know it's about her business. And I feel like she's just clogging up my messages,
Yeah, well, I have a personal Facebook page, but I also have a business Facebook page about the writing. And I don't post anything on the business one except about the writing. And I try to keep the other one separate. But
now tell me about your 4 books. They're going to be on the screen so people can pick up the title?
Well, my first book, my debut novel, was called Reichhold Street, and it was, like I said, a 2012 Reader's Favorite Gold Medal winner, and it's coming of age historical fiction set in the 60s, but it's more than just talking about kids in the 60s, because you kind of follow them through a lot of, I've gotten some good feedback even from teachers, because there are teachers who think that the issues I deal with, like bullying and family dysfunction, alcoholism, madness, the war in Vietnam, they like
Divorce,
it.
suicide.
Divorce, suicide, exactly.
I remember reading that.
Yeah. It's all in there, and it's not covered up in any way. It just talks about how it affected the kids that are the characters that you're following.
And then you followed that up. That's a trilogy, isn't it?
It's
planned
the
trilogy.
The intent is to do that.
To do that. Well, you did do the second book.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Of the trilogy.
That came out this year, as a matter of fact. That's called One Way Street.
Okay.
Follows some of the same characters, not all of them, but it also introduces new ones. And it's not so much a coming-of-age story, it's more of a suspense thriller.
Okay.
But there's also ZEBULON, which was the silver medal winner, which is the fantasy short stories. And there's a book called Tinker, which is general fiction, literary fiction, short stories.
Now, you promised me you'd read a paragraph from Reichhold Street.
Reichhold Street.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, if anybody's interested, my website has an audio file of one of my poems, but yeah, I brought the book to read.
And I think your website's going to be up on the screen. Do you want to tell people what it is?
It's ronaldherron.com.
Okay, that's easy enough.
And this is out of Reichhold Street, out of chapter 1. And it's told, well, it starts from the viewpoint of the protagonist, Paul. He's one of the main characters that you'll find. It was late August 1962 when I first saw Albert Parker. After all this time, I still remember the year quite distinctly. It was my second teenage summer, and like discovering I had a sexual identity, it was a part of life's first great transition. I had been waiting months for something special to happen, something magical, something like having Marilyn Monroe show up on my doorstep. In my dreams, she would be wearing that flouncy white dress she wore over the subway grate in The 7-Year Itch. She would lean close and ask me in one of her breathless whispers to take her. At the time, I wasn't even sure what that meant. Hell, it didn't matter. Just having her show up would have been enough, as long as the gang saw her. Of course, Marilyn never came to 752 Reichhold Street in Brickdale. Albert did. That day started as a humid, hurt-your-lungs-on-a-deep-breath morning. A blistering sun was rising over the railroad switching yard at the far end of the street, while sinuous heat ribbons shimmered over motionless freight cars, their rusty shapes defined like so many slumbering beasts.
We'll have to put it on the website, and it's available through Amazon and Barnes & Noble, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
You've done quite a bit of traveling, and do you think traveling helps you in your writing?
Perhaps, yeah. I counted them up the other day. I've been in 17 countries, but...
The Great Wall of China?
Yeah, been on the Great Wall of China. And those are fabulous experiences. I'm very fortunate to have them. And yeah, I suppose it does help in your writing, because writing, you hear a lot, write what you know. But I think that is more than just your personal experience. You write what you know because you know things from reading, from traveling, from research. I mean, I don't have to have somebody to point a gun at me to know what fear is like. So you can take those kinds of things and put them in. Yeah, you can take all of that and put it into your writing.
And you're an avid reader, I understand.
Very much so.
Yeah, I think that's important too.
Yes.
What was the best feedback you got? You've had some critics read your work. You've got some awards. What was the very best feedback you got as far as helping you continue to write?
Well, like you said, I've got some nice reviews. Reader's Favorite said that said that I was a master of character development, which is kind of nice to hear.
Ah, that's important.
I had one review organization talk about my book, saying, don't let this one fly under the radar, which is also nice to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Kirkus Reviews, which is probably one of the premier review organizations in the country, said Reichhold Street was skillfully written and emotionally strong. But I think the thing that I like the most is that my wife likes the way I write.
Is she a tough critic?
Yes, very tough.
It's good that you pleased her then. Well, writing a book takes a lot of time, work, and research, and a lot of stick-to-itiveness. And I just still don't know how you did it in 4 books in 2 years. We're going to show all 4 books on the screen too.
Yeah, like I said, Reichhold Street started from short stories that I'd actually already written several years earlier. It was the putting together of them into a novel that took the time and the editing. But I also I'm an avid reader. I'm a fast reader, which helps with my research.
Who did your covers for you?
I did all my own covers.
You designed them yourself?
I designed myself, yeah. That's one of the advantages of having worked in an ad agency.
Well, that's true.
I mean, I did that for a while. I was an art director. And
what would you advise listeners to do if they would like to write or publish a book?
I think the most important thing for any wannabe author is to read. I mean, read everything you can, and don't just read. When you find something that you like, don't just read it to read it. Read it over and over until you understand what it is about the writing that you like. What they did that made it so appealing to you, and try to remember that. And then to write, just sit down and write. Just let the words come out. Just put them on the page as fast as you can get them. Don't worry about correctness or grammar or punctuation or anything at that point. Just get the thoughts down, because there's plenty of time to make it pretty later.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you there, that just sit down and do it. There's a great book out called The Artist Way that I've done, and it's great at encouraging writers.
Yeah, one of the best books that I think I've come across that talks about writing is by, of all people, Stephen King.
Oh, really?
It's called On Writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not one of his stories. It's about how he goes about writing, and it details a little bit about an accident. He was hit by a truck some years ago, and while he was recovering, this is when this book was really put together. He's writing about how you go about it and why you go about it. And even though I don't always like all of his stories, I think the man he knows how to tell a story, which is the secret.
Mm-hmm. And just remember that when you write that book, that's just the beginning, because once it's published, then the work really begins. It's a lot of work, but it can be very satisfying. So we appreciate you being with us here today, Ron. It was great to have you.
It's nice of you to ask me.
And the rest of you, go out there and make it a good day.